You're listening to the BBM Global Network with 25 years in broadcast audio and video production. Our passionate team creates content and marketing for the world of Internet Talk Radio. If you've got a passion, come join us at bbmglobalnetwork.com. The BBM Global Network. Your voice is now heard.
Do you find you're always on the go but never seem to get anywhere? Welcome to EFT for Spiritual Fitness with your host, Cathryn Taylor. Best-selling author Cathryn Taylor will tap your way from energetic overload to a relaxing state of spiritual fitness. So now, please welcome the mother of inner child work and the host of EFT for Spiritual Fitness, Cathryn Taylor.
Greetings again. I'm Cathryn Taylor, broadcasting live from the Twin Cities of Minnesota on Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And as you just heard, this is EFT for Spiritual Fitness. So what is spiritual fitness? Well, spiritual fitness is really establishing habits that will enable you to be fulfilled, body, mind, heart, and soul. It's about being open to all sorts of things that bring you into harmony with yourself, that allow you to have conscious contact, not only with your higher self and with your inner self, but with others as well. And one of the ways that we can do this is by being astrologically intelligent. And so today is the first Thursday of the month, and on every first Thursday, I invite my friend and colleague, DK Brainard, who is a well-known astrologer. DK is a musician and a shaman, and he uses rhythm and storytelling and humor and empathy to help people reclaim their inner authority and rewrite their life story. The way they help us on EFT for Spiritual Fitness is that, as I said, the first Thursday of every month, DK contributes to our never-ending evolution by joining me and bringing us the astrological highlights for that month. And so what we do is we talk the first segment a little bit about what the highlights are. We kind of confab together on what that means in the second segment. And then we do a little bit of the EFT tapping in the third and talk about ways that you can really incorporate it. So without further ado, I would like to welcome my friend and colleague, DK Brainard. DK, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to this month.
Thank you. Did you just use the word confab?
I think I did.
I love that.
I think I
It's
did.
an underused word that's so great, I think.
So
Yeah,
kind of
good morning, good morning.
lay this on us. What are we looking at? I know that within hours we're going, Mercury is going direct, and I know it takes a while for that to kick in, but it's been a heck of a couple last months.
Yeah. I hope Mercury will bless us, during this call, because trying to do something as technologically complex as this, with Mercury stationing it's an endeavor. But so Mercury returns to direct motion, or starts returning to direct motion this afternoon, about around 4:30 New York City time, and then we have a new moon in Sagittarius overnight. So that's about 2:30 in the morning, New York time, on Friday. So tonight we're in the dark of the moon. And basically after those two events, and I'm saying December 7th, so that's Friday, December 10th, Monday, is probably the day when things are going to start feeling, I don't want to say normal, because we are not living in normal times. But the energy is going to be definitely moving forward again. And that's exciting, because for most of 2018, we have been in one retrograde cycle or another, involving the inner planets. So the inner planets are the ones that are kind of closest to us and most accessible. Mercury, how we think, how we communicate. Mars, our assertiveness, anger, how we go out and get what we want. Venus, how we relate. Jupiter and Saturn have also been retrograde. And so basically, we're entering this kind of whole new world. And we've got Jupiter, the planet of expansion, abundance, good fortune, in Sagittarius, which is the sign that he is the ruler of. So that's a really good kind of expansive energy that only happens every 12 years. And we'll talk, I think, more about that 12-year cycle in a little bit. But so there's this really positive energy that's about to kick in. And right now, for a lot of people, that seems, what should I say, like a fantasy. You know, it doesn't seem very realistic because, you know, and I talk to lots of spiritual people every week, as you do too, in doing our work. And I know that a lot of my clients and colleagues who are spiritual entrepreneurs, or, you know, who are doing things like massage or Reiki or, you know, whatever, that money's been really tight, you know. And I think one of the things that's been going on since June with when the Mars retrograde started, and then we had Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, this is the second time since June, is that kind of people got really constricted collectively. And so people haven't been spending money. A lot of people are really afraid. They're really anxious. They're depressed. They're angry. And they're kind of, everything's been kind of closed up. And what the astrology is telling us is that starting on Monday, you know, as we go into the holiday season and the new year, there's going to be this big collective release of energy. And so, yeah, we want to look at it as like, wow, okay, I hope I learned a lot during the last 6 months and really during all of 2018. And now is the time to start pulling it together so I can apply it and take the next steps.
Great.
Does that make sense?
It does. So we've spent a lot of time gathering, it sounds like, and now we're ready to really move into the application of it. And is there more development with this, or in the gathering, have we already developed what we're going to bring to the world and it's really ready to give birth to it?
Well, yeah, I think there's a little bit more development. I mean, it's been a really intense, this is like a postdoctoral level class in you know, working with your soul, right? And how we use our energy in the world. So with Mercury stationing direct, Mercury moves back. Mercury retrograded from Sagittarius back into the late degrees of Scorpio, and Mercury will be back in Sagittarius where the retrograde started on December 12th. So that's next Wednesday, I believe. And then it's not until, let's see, right around a couple days before the Christmas holiday, so right after the solstice, that Mercury returns. He clears the shadow, kind of. So he returns to where he started his retrograde. And so basically we can look at this next period up until, just say, Christmas Day for, you know, or whatever holiday you celebrate, the winter holidays. We can look at that as this period where what we've been learning over the last 6 months is going to start becoming accessible on a mental level. You know, so this is when we're sort of putting the pieces back together. Things are starting, because a lot of times with the real, you know, and it's not just retrogrades. It can be when an outer planet is hitting your sun or moon, for example. But when we have these initiatory shamanic kind of astrological transits, we know we're learning something, right? We know we have to shift. We can feel it because it's usually it comes through painful circumstances, right? But we don't always know, like, okay, I know I have to let go of something. I know I need to do something different, but I'm just struggling just to kind of stay alive and keep breathing and stay grounded right now. So now as Mercury is going forward back into Sag and covering the retrograde degrees, I feel like that's when, by the time we get to the Christmas holiday, you know, things are going to be looking a lot clearer than they have in a long time. That's the ideal. That's the possibility.
That sounds great. You know, I like the way you put it, that it's almost when we're going through a growth spurt or a detox or that kind of cleansing, it is such an emotional and physical experience, and we can't really bring it to the world until we can bring it into the mental body and really conceptualize what we experienced and then put it together and package it in a way that we can share it with others, whether that's on a personal level or in a professional level, like the types of programs you and I bring to the world. It needs to be conceptualized. It can't be hand delivered to somebody from that organic, gut-wrenching place. It can be shared, but that's kind of hitting them with the emotional energy of it. And when we kind of conceptualize it and begin to know how we digest it, I think the mental body is where we really digest our experiences so that we can talk about them in an articulate manner. Would you kind of agree with that layering of that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that plays into that is this is a huge moment in the history of our species and of our planet. So I mean, the world really is in crisis, at least on one level, right? Mm-hmm. And people are feeling that, and people who don't have a lot of soul education, who don't have a lot of resources, they're going to tend to stay in that emotional gut-wrenching kind of level. And so they're still going to be putting out all these emotions that are challenging for us to deal with, even if we've sort of made our own transitions internally. That actually shows up in the new moon, both the Mercury retrograde that's ending today and the new moon tonight, tomorrow morning, because where both of those happened, or where the new moon's happening, where the Mercury retrograde started, it's right on the ascendant of the United States of America's birth chart. So the ascendant is it's our personality, like who am I in the world? And so there's this real big picture, there's this additional layer of things of, as a collective, as a society, we're rethinking who we are. We're being forced to reevaluate, who are we? What's our identity? So there's a lot going on, but yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's the opportunity is like, okay, let's look back now at what have I learned? What have I learned that doesn't work for me? What have I learned that I don't want anymore? What have I learned that I do want?
Well, that also really fits into this new wave of grief that's coming on the planet, where we've always heard about the 5 stages of grief. Anybody that deals with grief, we're pretty familiar with the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief. And recently there has been a lot of talk about a 6th stage of grief, which is the transformation. And I was just actually interviewing a local psychic that's well known around the world, but she happens to live here, Echo Bodine. And we were talking about 2019 predictions and what was going to happen. And we were talking a lot about this year and the crises that you're talking about, DK, and how that crises really takes us through those 5 stages of grief, but it opens us up on such a level. And I've been working a lot with that concept with my family, because as I've talked a lot about on this show, we just had the recent passing of my brother. And one of the wonderful things that I've noticed is that even though the loss is gut-wrenching, it has opened each of us up on such a deeper level. And it's almost like that crisis that the planet has been experiencing collectively is opening up this window of bringing in more light. That it's like the more pain we're in, the more opportunity we have to expand into that 6th level and really transform. And it almost sounds like astrologically that's being supported, that we can now take all of these retrogrades. And you're right, it just feels like in 2018 we were always in one or another retrograde. I remember even thinking, God, we must be in a Mercury retrograde again, because things were just going so awry. And we weren't, but the energy was the same. And so it's like we've all been kind of stripped down to the bare. And if we are able, and if we have the tools to allow ourselves to rise out of that phoenix, then we're going to be able to make use of that. So I really want to talk a lot more about that when we come back, but it is time for us to take our first short break. Again, I'm Cathryn Taylor, and I'm here with my friend DK Brainard, and we're talking on EFT for spiritual fitness, and we're broadcasting live on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And we're talking about the astrological highlights for this month and how you can move into the holiday season and take advantage of that. So stay tuned, and we will be right back.
Do you ever wonder why certain things are happening in your life? How to start a business or a new direction? Need answers? Astrologer Bonnie Perbula can help you reveal your true self and gain strength and focus so you can achieve greater joy and success. Working with a natal birth date, time, and location, Bonnie brings out qualities to aid you in getting the best from your life. She can help you unlock dormant traits to bring you greater awareness. Bonnie also conducts public speaking engagements to educate aspiring astrologers on their journey to the stars. A gifted artist, Bonnie bridges her talents and recently launched a line of Astro Bears, uniquely created in colors of individuals' astrology charts. She also makes one-of-a-kind necklaces of crystal beads and woven thread. To learn more about the world of Bonnie Perbula, go to bonniegperbula.com. And for astrology consulting, visit astrologyconsultants.com or call or email her at 808-526-1536 or bonniegp@aol.com.
Renaissance woman, trailblazer, maverick. Those are just some of the words to describe Tashandra Poulard, owner and CEO of House of Virgo Entertainment, LLC, a woman minority veteran-owned entertainment company based in Washington, D.C. Ms. Poulard served 10 years honorably in the United States Navy and departed from active duty to pursue her dreams of becoming an entertainment mogul. House of Virgo Entertainment offers script writing, producing, directing, DJ services, editing, and more. They cater to businesses, corporations, college students, working professionals, aspiring artists, and nonprofit organizations, and employ veterans of the armed forces. Tashandra Poulard is pioneering the way we view media and taking her brand global. Visit her at www.houseofvirgoentertainment.com or call 281-515-3740 and like her on Facebook at House of Virgo Entertainment, LLC.
Welcome back to EFT for Spiritual Fitness. We're broadcasting live on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and I'm your host, Cathryn Taylor. And today I'm here with my friend and colleague, DK Brainard, and we are talking about the astrological highlights for this month and really for this whole year. So DK, let's toss around some thoughts about how the listeners can take advantage of these astrological configurations, and most specifically with what we were talking about over break with the Jupiter and the 12-year cycle that Jupiter brings in. How can we relate that to our personal lives?
So there's an astrologer out of Washington, D.C. named Cathryn Casey, who's just she's a trip. And she wrote a book called Making the Gods Work for You. And I love her take on working with Jupiter. So Jupiter's on a 12-year cycle. It's one of the most regular planetary cycles. So every 12 years, Jupiter returns to whatever sign he's in. He was in 12 years ago. He spends almost exactly a year in each sign. And so 12 years ago, that would be around late November 2006 through, so Thanksgiving 2006 through Thanksgiving 2007 was the last time Jupiter was in Sagittarius, which is the sign that he's the ruler of. So when a planet's in its own sign, it's considered to be strong and it can bring forth its best qualities. And so this is a real opportunity at the end of this year, and especially now that the retrogrades are ending and moving into 2019, to really access and make use of the Jupiter expansion, abundance, generosity, wisdom, good luck kind of principle. So Cathryn Casey says, how do you take advantage of that? Well, go back and tell yourself the story of the last 12 years. She says, don't look for some deep meaning. Just what happened? Where were you? What conversations were you having? What books were you reading? What was your love life like at that time? And she says that if you tell yourself the story of the last 12 years, what Jupiter will do for you now is he'll set in motion a chain of events that will bring you what you wanted 12 years ago, but what you weren't ready for.
Oh.
So I actually talked about this in my last podcast, and I told the story, it's like 12 years, there's a lot happens, right? So you can tell a lot of stories about that. but I kind of told the outline of how I was seeing my last 12 years. And one of the things that was just striking to me, just in the process of doing that for 5 or 10 minutes, was how much I've grown and how much I needed to grow in order to do what I wanted to do 12 years ago. So, yeah. And then I think there's a thing, there's something I've been tuning into that we talked about a little earlier off the air, where a lot of us, specifically healers, people who are on a spiritual path, who are really doing the work, we've been working at this stuff for a long time, right? And a lot of kind of, especially this year with all the retrograde stuff, it's like we're working, it's like, okay, well, where's the reward? How come I'm still like I'm struggling? And I feel like a lot of that is just due to the collective cycles. We're all subject to energies that are going on. And starting Monday and moving into the rest of December and into 2019, it's a whole new ball game. There's a whole different energy that's coming in. And I think one of the big challenges for us is to let go of old limitations of the idea that no matter what I do, it just never seems to work out, right? To kind of feel, so there's grief there. That's definitely a grief energy, right?
Yes.
A lot. I wanted this 12 years ago and I couldn't get it, and I wanted to be further along in love or money or career or happiness or health or whatever than I am now. And it hasn't happened, so there's grief that needs to be let go of. And there's a huge opportunity. And I would love for people to just cultivate that idea of like, forget about what happened before, because this is new.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And yes, it does. And to review, like as you're talking, I was thinking about the sequence of events from 1994 to 2006, which was a 12-year period for me, and then 2006 to now 2018, and how that first 12 years was really developing these experiences. I went on the road. My book had just come out. I got ready for marathons. I started doing workshops on the inner child. I was kind of developing all that. And then starting in 2006, I'd completed 4 marathons, and I was then starting the whole career as an author, or continuing it, where I wrote all the books. And now just this last year, I re-edited those and brought them in to like a whole new vibration. And so it is interesting to look at not only what we wanted 12 years ago, but the sequences to that. And at some point on today's broadcast, I want to do a meditation with people. I don't know if we have time to do it before we go into break again, but of just walking through, like you were saying, telling that story and pausing and thinking, okay, what was I doing? And, starting in November 2006, what was I doing? And then what was I doing that next year? And what were the themes in all of this? And maybe we can do a little bit of that before we go to break. We've got, I think, about 5 minutes. Should we go into a little bit of a meditation and have people picture themselves? Okay, so what I'd invite listeners to do, of course, if you're driving, I don't want you to do this. I want you to just listen to it. But you can also come back and archive it. But you can get the concept of it. But if you're in the comfort of your own home and you can tune in, then I would just invite you to just get quiet for a little bit and take a deep breath. You always come into the center of your being by taking your breath and allowing your breath to come in to that center, which is right kind of in the center of the belly, maybe a couple inches above your belly button. And if you just use your breath to center, and then let your mind and your heart take you back to November of 2006, and just begin imagining that you're on a conveyor belt, like that conveyor belt that you travel, say, at an airport. And at the end of that conveyor belt is what I always envision as my future self. And today you're envisioning the future self to that 2006 self. So who you thought you were then, who you wanted to become then, and you've arrived at that 12-year cycle, and you're ready to establish another future vision. But you can't move forward until you review where you've been. And that's what all the retrogrades this year have really invited us to do. So get this concept of a conveyor belt. And as you step onto the conveyor belt, you're sequentially moved through each of these past 12 years. And when you're doing this on your own, you can just pause and maybe take a few moments and then envision how what you experienced from November 2006 to 2007, how that laid a foundation for the next 12-year cycle in 2008 and 2009 and 2010 and 11, and just sequentially going through each year and giving yourself some time to pause the recording or doing this in your own work, and you just create this stairway to who you've become as you're being pulled by your higher self, by your future self, down this conveyor belt. Because once you give vision to your future self, that future self, that part of you who stands in those shoes today, and the part of you that will project out to, I guess it'd be 2030, can then pull you down that conveyor belt through the experiences. And what you're doing today is letting it go, seeing what the visions were, the aspirations, the inspirations, and seeing how you've shown up for yourself in this last 12 years. And you're really getting ready to take all that into your life in a new way, capitalizing on the retrogrades, on the review, the redo, the revision, and using these last couple weeks of the year to wrap that up for yourself so you can take advantage of this new Jupiter cycle, of this new internal cycle. And as you put that in place for yourself, just allow that to be there. Allow that concept of that movement, and it's without effort, it's ease, and it's gentle, and it's inviting, and it's spirit-driven. It's an experience that comes from your heart. And what we have the opportunity to do is drop from being led by our heart, by our mind, and dropping into the heart. And then we can certainly conceptualize it with our mind, but our guiding force is spirit-driven. And that spirit drive and inspiration is transmitted to us through our heart. And you get into your heart with your breath. And once you commit to being there, then the conveyor belt moves you along. The whole reason we jump on a conveyor belt at the airport is it takes us where we want to go without us efforting. It's easy. And we can put our energy into being enthusiastic. And that's what this new cycle is about for you, is believing, letting go of all of the old disappointments and inspirations that never came into fruition. Now is the time. Astrologically, we're being told whatever didn't work before, now in this next Jupiter cycle, it can work. And we're ready to move forward. So hold that energy. Hold that inspiration. Breathe into it. Really take a moment to just breathe into it. And allow yourself to expand into it. Allow yourself to bring in a renewed hope. Allow yourself to be present. Breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. Just let yourself feel that. We're going to move right into a short break, and when we come back, we're going to work with this a little bit more. We're going to do a little bit of tapping with it. But you've been listening to EFT for Spiritual Fitness on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio, and stay tuned because we will take this one step further.
For over 50 years, Evelyn Stapula has been a loving advocate for people with disabilities throughout the state of Pennsylvania. President and founder of Big Heart Bridges, her organization actively campaigns for legislation and support of civil liberties that meet the needs of disabled individuals with housing, transportation, and employment. Ms. Stapula has joined forces with a variety of esteemed organizations that advocate for the disabled. She serves on the board of the United Cerebral Palsy of Pittsburgh and the Governor's Cabinet and Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities, and she is a consultant for the Pennsylvania Governor's Conference for Women. Her many efforts have led to the implementation of a transportation program for the disabled with the Access Paratransit System of Allegheny County. Evelyn Stapula strives daily to serve the interests of the disabled, to protect their freedoms, and enable them to live normal public lifestyles. To learn more, please call 412-491-2605 or email Evelyn at ers92645@verizon.net. Animal lover, author, artist, and public speaker, Patricia Daly-Lipe is a Renaissance woman in her own right. A lover of animals from a young age, Patricia lives on a farm in Virginia and has rescued neglected thoroughbred horses, keeping them or finding them safe havens. She is also a published author, and her books document real-life experiences that she shares in her passionate stories, taking the reader around the world in a colorful kaleidoscope of life. An accomplished artist, Patricia Daly-Lipe's oil paintings feature animals, portraits, stills, nature, and abstract, and she allows the brush to paint the image in an organic, natural way. A public speaker, Patricia is motivated to continually wonder about life and advocates for all of us to do the same and document our own unique history. To learn more about Patricia Daly-Lipe, visit www.literarylady.com and www.patricialipe.com or email her at pdlipe@gmail.com.
Welcome back to EFT for Spiritual Fitness, and we're broadcasting live on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And I'm your host, Cathryn Taylor, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, DK Brainard, and we've been really talking about not only the Mercury retrograde and the Venus retrograde, we've been talking about all the retrogrades of 2018, and we've been talking about this 12-year cycle that Jupiter is just completing and beginning again. And right before the break, we did this meditation to kind of set up your ability to begin to transition from one 12-year cycle to another. So before we get into doing any tapping, DK, can you speak a little bit more about that transition and what we're moving from and what we have the opportunity to move to?
Yeah. And I want to just invite people that some people may have a hard time with dates, and so it doesn't just to give you permission, right? That if you don't remember November 2006, but roughly you can remember that era, just go with what comes up when you do, and I want to do the conveyor belt again, when I have a little bit more time, because that was so powerful, just that 5-minute meditation. But, just work with what comes up, because your heart, if you're breathing into your heart, you're grounded, your heart will, bring forward what you need to see. And I love that idea that you mentioned, which is we're not only looking at retrograde type challenges and disappointments and, the things we had to learn and the grief that we need to let go of or whatever. We're also looking at, even in that 5 minutes, looking back, I had this experience of, wow, look at all you accomplished. And you didn't really, because you don't realize it when you're doing it, right? You didn't realize in 2006 that you were going to write 10 books in the next 12 years.
Right.
You're just writing a book and then you're done and then you're writing the next one, right? But then when you look back, I think part of the astrological archetypal signature here is that doing this kind of review of the last 12 years, it activates the Jupiter abundance principle, because you're actually putting yourself into resonance with who you really are, right? With that future self who's been pulling you forward on the conveyor belt, you're putting yourself into alignment with your true inner genius and your true soul power. by acknowledging and being able to see, like, oh, wow, look at everything that I've done. Look at everything I got through. Look at everything, all the ways I've grown. And that's really important with Jupiter, because Jupiter's like, hey, I'm the greatest. Everything's going to be awesome. Just believe, just have faith. We're going to just make this fantastic. You can't even believe how incredibly awesome this is going to be. And so this helps us align somewhat with that Jupiter principle.
Well, what I like, yes, it does. And what I like is the dichotomy of moving on the conveyor belt, because one of the things I always say to my clients and in my workshops is that whenever we expand into a new experience, we're always going to have the backlash of some part of us that we had to outgrow to expand into. And so I call that backlash. And if we're not prepared for that, it takes us down, because we think, oh, I thought that I was moving forward and now I have to deal with these feelings. Well, what you're dealing with is a younger part of you that needs to be brought on to the conveyor belt with you. And one of the reasons I love the metaphor of the conveyor belt is energetically, like we just went through this 12-year period and now we've arrived at that future self. And as we went through that 12 years, our future self kept vibrationally pulling us through. So we've been in a state of letting go every time we expanded. And that's the way that we ebb and flow through life. I always say we're always in one of the 5 and now the 6 stages of grief, is that we're always expanding and growing and letting go, and expanding and growing and letting go. And so I think what's beautiful about this is to celebrate who we've become and to take that new aspect of us as we look back and really celebrate all the parts of us that we have resolved and in a way integrated, because I work with it from the inner child concept. It's like gathering all these inner children, and by allowing them to speak their truth and bringing them back into the fold, we have reconnected with our divinity of that inner child. We all come in with this divine essence that gets squashed, and then we have the wounded child. Well, the whole purpose of inner child work is you heal that inner child, and then you get to embody that spontaneity and that joy and that innocence, and it has the mastery and the maturity of the adult self. But it's like painting with colors. You just bring a black and white picture into color when you embrace the inner child. And that's what I'd invite people to do as we move into the tapping, that you're really going to be drawn down this conveyor belt with your higher self and with your most illuminated self, so that you expand and you let go, and then you breathe in and you let go. So DK, are you willing to do the echoing for the tapping, and we'll just walk people through and give them a little bit of a snippet of that?
Absolutely.
All right. So for those of you who have not tapped with me, I encourage you to just listen and to know that whatever I'm doing on the air, it's just meant as a gentle introduction to a very powerful self-help tool. But I encourage you to go to my website, which is www.EFTforyourinnerchild.com. Go to the tab that says Interactive Tapping Explained. There's a video there of my signature way of tapping, which is again called the interactive tapping. But there's also a really good 7-minute video by Gary Craig, and it will give you all the information that you need to know. But this is a self-help tool, and I encourage you, if you're going to tap with me, you're doing this on your own accord. So change the words back out, move forward, use it in whatever way is in alignment with you, but you are responsible for your reaction with it. So with that said, we're going to come to the karate point to do the 3 setups. And we're doing just kind of putting the batteries in to what we want to neutralize and what we want to reinforce. So DK, just repeat after me, and you're tapping on that fleshy part between your little finger and your wrist, and you're just staying on that until I break and say we go to the reminder phrases and we go to the endpoints, okay?
Got it.
All right. So just start tapping and repeat after me. So even though I'm coming to the end of a 12-year cycle,
even though I'm coming to the end of a 12-year cycle.
And I, on my own time, can review what the details are of that cycle.
And I, on my own time, can review what the details are of that cycle.
I want to commit to the concept.
I want to commit to the concept
Of stepping on this symbolic conveyor belt.
of stepping on the symbolic conveyor belt
As a way to acknowledge that there is a force beneath me and in front of me.
That there's a force beneath me and in front of me.
That's always pulling me forward.
It's always pulling me forward.
Vibrationally inviting me.
Vibrationally inviting me.
As I move along the conveyor belt.
As I move along the conveyor belt.
To vibrationally transform any energy that no longer serves me.
Vibrationally transform any energy that no longer serves me.
That enables me to continue to expand.
That enables me to continue to expand.
But as I expand,
I
expose the vibrational dissonance.
I expose the vibrational dissonance.
That I then have the opportunity to neutralize, resolve, and transcend above.
That I then have the opportunity to neutralize, resolve, and transcend above.
So as I move along this conveyor belt, getting closer and closer to that newly developed future self.
So as I move along this conveyor belt, getting closer and closer to that newly developed future self.
It is an ever-evolving vibrational shift that I am engaged in.
It is an ever-evolving vibrational shift that I am engaged in.
And as I expand vibrationally, I embrace any vibrational dissonance that comes to the surface and needs to be resolved.
I embrace any vibrational dissonance that comes to the surface and needs to be resolved.
For I am made up of many vibrational selves.
For I am made up of many vibrational selves.
And each of those selves will come into the fold as they are exposed and invited to do so.
And each of those selves will come into the fold as they are exposed and invited to do so.
So at the end of each 12-year cycle,
there
is a beginning.
There is a beginning.
And I come into the completion, integrated and whole. Okay, so shake your hands out, and that's set out what our intention is. So now we're going to do some tapping on the endpoints. DK, you and I start at the eyebrow, and every time I say something or a phrase, after you repeat it, then we move to the next phrase. And we'll start this. We may have to take a break in between, but we'll wrap it up on the other side if we do get interrupted. But let's just start for right now and begin to neutralize that. When we're doing what the setup is, we're setting up where we are and where we want to go. With the reminder phrases, we're then neutralizing and then coming into a believability and a conviction to allow this to happen. All right, so let's do the first round by starting on the eyebrow point that's nearest the nose. All of these changes. It's time for me to move beyond them. It's time to acknowledge that I have moved through them. And I'm ready to do so. By expanding and letting go. And we're going to do more expanding and letting go when we come back from our break. So again, this is Cathryn Taylor, EFT for Spiritual Fitness. And when we come back from our break, we will continue this neutralizing and expanding. So stay tuned.
Intergenerational programming is uniting America due to the tireless efforts of Dr. Ramona Frischman. Retired from the Miami-Dade County Public School System, Dr. Frischman continues to develop intergenerational learning programs aimed to improve the lives of children, young adults, and seniors through unique strategies and public policy in order to establish a mutually supportive agenda. She views intergenerational programs as a resource for policymakers and the general public on economic, social, and personal initiatives that govern our society. Her work bridges the generational gap, providing many individuals the opportunity to explore areas of common ground and celebrate each other's diversity. Contact Ramona Frischman at ramonalong@aol.com or visit www.gu.org to learn more about intergenerational programming.
Introducing BetterHomeAndGarden.com. That's www.betterhomeandgarden.com with just the letter N in Better Home and Garden. BetterHomeAndGarden.com offers you the highest quality products on the market that are environmentally safe and effective, and to make them available to you at the lowest possible prices. BetterHomeAndGarden.com understands that kind of creativity and do-it-yourself attitude. Thus, we developed our website, BetterHomeAndGarden.com. BetterHomeAndGarden.com offers you the following products right online: bath, bedding, collectibles, craft, sewing and hobby, food and beverage, furniture, home decor, kitchen and dining, lamps and lighting, large appliances, musical instruments, outdoor cooking, patio items, pet supplies, plant and garden, rug and floor coverings, small appliances, travel and luggage, and so much more. Better Home and Garden is an online retailer offering a wide variety of high-quality brand name merchandise at discount prices. Our service is personal and we aim to please. Visit us at www.betterhomeandgarden.com. Make your home your own.
Welcome back to EFT for Spiritual Fitness. And we've been broadcasting live on BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And I'm your host, Cathryn Taylor. And in this broadcast, together with my friend and colleague, DK Brainard, we've been trying to give you a preview of the astrological highlights, but also inviting you to review your life for the last 12 years and setting some real goals and intentions for the next 12 years. And that is centering on the fact that Jupiter has completed a 12-year cycle. So we've talked a lot in this episode about what that means. We are right in the middle of doing a tapping episode, so we're going to complete that now. And I think let's start back on the eyebrow and do 3 rounds so that we can bring closure to that, DK, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how people can take this into their lives in the next 3 to 4 weeks. All right?
All right.
So
All right.
come back to the eyebrow. We'll just kind of start over. All of these changes. It's really been a lot in the last 12 years.
It's really been a lot in the last 12 years.
And it's really been a lot in the last 12 months.
And it's really been a lot in the last 12 months.
When I sit with who I was in 2006,
But I sit with who I was in 2006
and recognize who I now am in 2018,
and recognize who I now am in 2018.
I can only be in awe
I can only be in awe
of the person I may be in 2030.
of the person I may be in 2030.
And I choose to use this concept of the conveyor belt
And I choose to use this concept of the conveyor belt
to progressively expand,
to progressively expand,
to progressively let go,
to progressively let go,
to embrace the process of grief,
to embrace the process of grief,
to let go of the anxiety,
to let go of the anxiety,
to understand the anxiety and connect it to loss,
to understand the anxiety and connect it to loss,
to embrace the codependence and the need to fix things,
to embrace the codependence and the need to fix things,
and the irritation and the anger that occurs when I don't.
and the irritation and the anger that occurs when I don't.
and the despair and sadness when I don't quite meet my mark.
And the despair and sadness when I don't quite meet my mark.
And then the acceptance.
And then the acceptance.
And the potential transformation.
And the potential transformation.
As I am on this ever steady movement from one point to the next.
As I am on this ever steady movement from one point to the next.
I am willing to embrace.
I am willing to embrace.
The concept that the time has come.
The concept that the time has come.
That no matter what I've tried in the past.
That no matter what I've tried in the past.
We have evolved as a planet.
We have evolved as a planet.
And humanity at large.
And humanity at large.
Collectively and individually.
Collectively and individually.
So that I can now attain that which I so desire.
So that I can now obtain that which I so desire.
It's safe to feel hope.
It's safe to feel hope.
It's safe to reinvest.
It's safe to reinvest.
I am not alone.
I am not alone.
I have my guardians, teachers, and angels.
I have my guardians, teachers, and angels.
I have my support system internally and externally.
I have my support system internally and externally.
And I know how to embody and embrace my children within.
And I know how to embody and embrace my children again.
And in this holiday season, as I begin to move into this new way of being, the present that I give to myself, is to be present. Now take a deep breath. Shake your hands out. And that'll just give all of us a preview of how we can work with that, how we can use the tapping to move forward. And if you find that you're stuck, then reach out to the professionals in your community, reach out to DK, reach out to myself to get that support, because you do not have to do this alone. And there are so many avenues now that you can move forward and to wake up and truly have conscious contact with yourself and others. So what are your thoughts about that, DK?
That was so beautiful. It's one of the things I love about doing the show with you is that I get this free tapping, journey. That was just so appropriate. I just feel like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe probably the biggest challenge with my my spiritual clients, which is pretty much all of my clients, is just that, there's until now, there hasn't been so much validation for us, right? I mean, as you and I talked about with your family in relation to your brother's passing, it's like a lot of us, we feel like we've kind of been out there on the fringe or doing this alone. And I feel like honoring who we are and everything that we've done to get to this point is so beautiful, so healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we can really ride the wave of all of the crises that has erupted and brought to the surface all of this unresolved thing, and with the light that's coming in on the planet now and the light that's available to come into our hearts, it's really, really about moving from being ego-driven to being heart-centered and spiritually infused. It's like that's really what we're being invited to do. And it's not only an invitation, DK, it's an offering. It's really there for us to take. And that's what I kept hearing you say through this whole broadcast about Jupiter, is Jupiter's really saying to us, it's time. I have what you need if you're ready to show up for it and allow it.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that idea of the vibrational dissonance, or the parts that, have to be kind of validated and worked with and pulled on board, that's part of the process. And it's not something to be afraid of or anxious about, right?
Right. It's like the labor pains of
embrace it
evolution.
because that's what we do.
Yeah. It's breathing in. Well, we're coming up on the end of this. And so the one thing I do want to plug is that you and I are going to move our show to a different date. We're going to reconvene on December 20th, which is the day before winter solstice. And so we're going to be able to give you a little bit more direction as you enter into that last 10 days of the year. And DK, I just want to invite you to say whatever you'd like to say and to give your contact information before we run out of time. And then we'll talk again on the air in 3 weeks. But just let people know how they can get a hold of you, will you?
I will do that. You can email me, dk@dkbrainard.com. My website is dkbrainard.com. You can Google DK Brainard and I will pop up. And so I do readings. I do soul work with, deep soul healing work with people. I do hypnotic trance type work. So yeah, check it out. And definitely just work with the tools that we gave you today, because I just feel like what we did today is so powerful. And work with that, and then come back and hang out with us on the solstice.
All right. Well, yes, I will see you then. And please take advantage of the offer that I have, which is a free 15-minute assessment. And you can call me at 612-710-7720, and we'll arrange that. But until next time, I just want to let you know that this has been EFT for Spiritual Fitness, and I've been broadcasting live on Bold Brave Media Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And until next time, remember that you do deserve to feel joy. It's your divine right. And so be good to you and to those you love, and the rest will follow.
You've been listening to the mother of inner child work and host of EFT for Spiritual Tapping, Cathryn Taylor. Join us each week and learn spiritual fitness and the art of relaxation for a more peaceful life. Allow joy, receive abundance, and attract healthy relationships on the next episode of Cathryn Taylor's EFT for Spiritual Fitness.
You've been listening to the BBM Global Network. The ideas, views, and opinions of this broadcast are those of the participants of the program and are not necessarily the ideas, views, and opinions of the BBM Global Network Company.